has confirmed it's launched an attack on Iran.
In the heart of the Persian Gulf, 200 miles off the coast of Iran, a clash of titans unfolded that would change the course of modern warfare. The year was 2026, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. A battle was brewing between one of the world's most advanced military forces, the United States Navy, and Iran, a country determined to assert its dominance over the region's critical waters. What began as a routine naval exercise quickly escalated into a high-tech, high-stakes confrontation, where strategies were tested and new weapons were deployed with devastating precision. On one side, the USS Gerald R, a state-of-the-art guided missile destroyer, prepared to launch an unprecedented attack. Armed with cutting-edge Tomahawk Block 5 missiles, capable of reaching their targets with pinpoint accuracy, the Gerald R was ready to strike. Within seconds of the order being given, a wave of 25 Tomahawks was unleashed, streaking toward their Iranian targets with relentless speed. The missiles raced through the air, headed for one of the most heavily defended regions in the world, Iran's coastline. But Iran wasn't about to sit idly by. With its radar systems scanning the skies, the Iranian military swiftly detected the incoming threat. The Bavar 373, Iran's advanced radar system, locked onto the missiles, preparing to intercept them. What they didn't know, however, was that this wasn't just a missile strike. This was a masterstroke in electronic warfare, a carefully crafted ruse designed to make them think they had won before the real battle even began. The Iranian forces, eager to defend their territory, launched their own countermeasures, sending interceptor missiles streaking into the sky to take down what they believed to be the incoming threat. Yet every time they succeeded in destroying one of the targets, they unknowingly revealed their own position, exposing themselves to the enemy's superior technology. The Americans had anticipated this moment and were ready for it. As Iranian radars continued to lock onto false targets, a series of drones, called Lucas, poured in from the U.S. side. These were not ordinary drones, but decoys designed to confuse and mislead the Iranian defense systems. For every drone destroyed, another set of coordinates was captured, revealing Iranian positions down to the exact GPS coordinates. In the skies above, the F-22 Raptors, part of the U.S. fleet's elite air force, monitored the chaos, silently gathering crucial intelligence. But the real surprise came when the USS Gerald R's captain made a calculated decision. Instead of launching more missiles, he opted for a weapon so advanced, so secretive, that few had even heard of it: Project Meteor. This high-powered microwave system unleashed a devastating electromagnetic pulse that disrupted the guidance systems of the Iranian drones in an instant. The results were catastrophic. 136 drones, once a vital part of Iran's defense, were destroyed in a matter of seconds, as if they were nothing more than trash falling from the sky. What followed was an all-out assault, utilizing cutting-edge technologies, including the APKWS laser-guided rockets and GBU-53B Stormbreaker bombs, to destroy Iranian targets with surgical precision. The American fleet, though facing a fierce opposition, sustained no casualties, while the Iranian forces were left to pick up the pieces of their shattered defense systems. This wasn't just a battle for military dominance. This was a demonstration of the future of warfare, where speed, technology, and strategy could change the tide of a conflict before it even began. And the question remains, in the face of such overwhelming technological superiority, how far will Iran be willing to go to defend its interests? Could they have avoided disaster if they had understood the full extent of the American capabilities? Stay tuned as we dive deeper into this explosive confrontation, uncovering the secrets of modern warfare and the high-tech arsenal that reshapes the battlefield. The year was 2026, and the United States Navy was preparing for one of its most complex and dangerous operations in the Persian Gulf. Tensions between the U.S. and Iran had been escalating for months, but no one knew how close the region was to erupting into open conflict. The USS Gerald R, a formidable guided missile destroyer, was assigned a critical role in the operation. This was no ordinary mission. The strategic objectives were far-reaching, and the eyes of the world were watching. A conflict in this vital region would not only impact the Middle East, but also ripple across global energy markets, triggering economic shockwaves. The USS Spruance, a highly advanced warship equipped with the latest in missile technology and stealth capabilities, sailed silently through the Gulf. The ship's most powerful asset was its arsenal of Tomahawk Block 5 missiles. These weapons, an upgrade on their predecessors, were designed to hit their targets with deadly precision, ensuring minimal collateral damage. With a range of over 1,000 miles and a warhead capable of penetrating even the toughest defenses, the Block 5 was a formidable weapon in the hands of a skilled crew. The mission was simple on paper: destroy Iranian military targets, degrade their missile defense systems, and send a clear message about the US's commitment to maintaining control of the region. But as with every military operation, the real challenge lay in execution. The USS Spruance's task force had been quietly maneuvering for days, remaining just out of reach of Iranian radar systems, carefully avoiding detection as it positioned itself in striking distance of Iranian coastal defenses. The plan was to execute a precision strike, using the Tomahawks to incapacitate key infrastructure and military installations that were known to be vital to Iran's defense network. This was a calculated move, one that would cripple Iran's missile launchers and radar stations without risking a full-scale war. But as the Spruance approached the launch coordinates, the intensity of the situation became palpable. Aboard the Spruance, Captain Samuel Mitchell was well aware of the stakes. His ship, a powerful instrument of warfare, was carrying out an operation that would require not just military expertise, but also cutting-edge technology. The task ahead was anything but straightforward. While the ship's radar and missile systems were state-of-the-art, they were only part of the puzzle. The Spruance had access to an experimental electronic warfare system known as Phantom Strike. This classified system, developed in collaboration with the U.S. Navy's top engineers, was designed to deceive enemy radar and communication systems, making it almost impossible for Iran's defense systems to lock onto the Spruance's missiles or detect the ship's presence until it was too late. As the mission commander, Captain Mitchell was tasked with making crucial decisions. His orders were clear: launch the Tomahawks at precisely the right moment and make sure the Iranian military was caught off guard. But Mitchell knew that a strike of this magnitude could lead to an irreversible escalation. One wrong move, and the entire region could be set on a path toward open conflict. However, the broader geopolitical goals required swift action to demonstrate the United States' military superiority in the region, and that meant using the Tomahawks as the first line of attack. At 300 hours, Captain Mitchell gave the order. Aboard the USS Spruance, the calm of the night was shattered as 25 Tomahawk missiles were launched from their vertical launch system. These missiles, designed to travel at speeds of up to 550 miles per hour, streaked toward their targets along the Iranian coast. Each missile was programmed to strike a specific target: air defense radars, missile silos, and strategic military infrastructure. The precision of these missiles was unparalleled, capable of hitting targets with the accuracy of just a few meters. As the missiles sped toward their targets, the first wave of the assault had already begun. Iran's response was immediate. The Iranian military had spent billions of dollars over the past decade developing an advanced network of missile defense systems, including the Bavar 373, which was designed to intercept incoming threats. These systems were capable of tracking and targeting long-range missiles, and the Iranian leadership was confident that they could stop the American assault. However, they hadn't anticipated the full scope of the attack. As the Tomahawks neared their targets, the Bavar 373 and other radar systems locked on, ready to intercept. But what the Iranian officers didn't know was that the Spruance's Phantom Strike system had already begun its work. The Tomahawks weren't just missiles, they were decoys, drawing Iranian radar systems into a false sense of security. As the missiles approached the Iranian coast, they released small drones, sophisticated decoys designed to mimic the signature of the Tomahawk's radar profile. The Iranian radars, detecting what appeared to be incoming missiles, began firing their interceptor missiles to destroy the threats. But in reality, these were just decoys, harmless drones designed to mislead and misdirect. While the Iranian forces were focused on the incoming decoys, the Spruance's real attack was already underway. The ship's radar detected an opening in the Iranian defense systems. Captain Mitchell gave the signal, and a new phase of the operation was about to unfold, one that would test the limits of modern warfare. As the first wave of American missiles descended upon the Iranian coastline, the Iranian military reacted with astonishing speed. Iran had long been aware of the increasing presence of U.S. forces in the Persian Gulf, and their leadership had prepared for this moment. The Bavar 373, Iran's cutting-edge radar and missile defense system, was on high alert, scanning the skies for incoming threats. This system, considered a formidable counterpart to Western missile defense networks, was designed to intercept long-range missiles and drones with deadly precision. But what Iran didn't know was that the real battle was already beginning, and it was about to test the limits of their technology. From a secure military bunker deep inside Iran's fortified underground command center, officers were tracking the American missiles as they appeared on the radar screens. The Bavar 373's systems locked onto the incoming targets, and orders were swiftly issued to launch a counterattack. Iran's elite missile defense units, armed with high-powered interceptor missiles, scrambled into action. As the Tomahawks approached, the ground shook with the launch of Iranian missiles, streaking into the sky with the intention of taking down the approaching threats. But things were not as they seemed. The first wave of American missiles had been designed not just to destroy targets, but to deceive the Iranian radar systems. Each Tomahawk missile deployed a series of miniature, high-tech drones, decoys that mimicked the radar signature of the missiles. The Iranian defense systems locked onto these decoys, mistaking them for the real threat. In response, Iran's missile defense systems launched salvo after salvo of interceptors, each missile designed to destroy a target with pinpoint accuracy. Yet despite their best efforts, these missiles were simply obliterating decoys, while the real Tomahawks continued on their course, undeterred by the counterattacks. Inside the Iranian military command, there was a palpable sense of confidence. They believed they had neutralized the American threat. But as they continued to fire at the decoys, they were unwittingly revealing their positions. Every time an interceptor missile fired, it sent a signal that could be tracked by the Americans. The advanced electronic warfare systems aboard the USS Gerald had already begun to pick up these signals, triangulating the location of Iranian radar systems and missile launchers. The U.S. military, with its superior surveillance and intelligence capabilities, had already gained a clear picture of the Iranian defense network. In the meantime, Iranian commanders remained oblivious to the growing danger. They continued to focus all their resources on destroying what they believed to be the incoming American assault, unaware that they were walking into a trap. The Spruance, operating from a distance beyond Iranian radar's reach, was now able to map out Iran's coastal defenses with alarming precision. Every radar transmission, every missile launch, every defensive maneuver was being tracked by the U.S. Navy in real time. The U.S. military had achieved what they called situational dominance, a strategic advantage that gave them the ability to predict and counter Iranian moves before they even occurred. Meanwhile, the Iranian officers manning the Bavar 373 radar systems noticed something strange. Despite their best efforts to intercept the incoming missiles, they were experiencing an unusual delay in targeting. The system was becoming increasingly unreliable, its screens flickering and glitching as the overwhelming number of targets fed into its processing units. What Iran didn't realize was that the U.S. Navy's electronic warfare systems were interfering with the radar signals, disrupting their ability to track anything accurately. It wasn't just the decoys that were causing problems. It was the sophisticated jamming technology deployed by the Spruance. The American vessel was so far beyond Iran's radar capabilities that the Iranians were essentially blind, unable to see the full scope of the threat closing in on them. The clock was ticking, and with each passing second, the Iranian military's confidence began to waver. Despite the initial successes in intercepting the decoys, They were realizing that they had no idea where the real attack was coming from. Their radar systems were compromised, their missile defenses were overwhelmed, and their best efforts to counter the attack were only making things worse. The Iranian command center, once filled with the noise of victory, now fell into tense silence as officers scrambled to reassess the situation. But the true scale of the disaster would not become apparent until it was too late. In the skies above, American stealth bombers were already on their way, their targets locked onto the Iranian missile silos. And as the Spruance prepared to launch its next wave of missiles, Iran's coastal defenses were no longer a secret. The US had already mapped out every last one of them, and with the Iranian military blind to the approaching storm, they were about to learn the hard way that in modern warfare, the first strike isn't always the most devastating. It's the one that comes when your enemy is no longer in control. As the Iranian defense forces scrambled to respond to the initial wave of decoys, the USS Spruance remained silent in the background, calculating its next move with chilling precision. The Iranian military, now aware that something was amiss, but still too preoccupied with intercepting decoys, failed to notice the real threat looming just beyond their radar's reach. With each passing minute, the Americans were making critical adjustments, preparing to exploit the weaknesses in Iran's defense network. The strategic focus had now shifted from sheer firepower to psychological warfare, relying on intelligence, deception, and technological superiority to break the Iranian forces. The F-22 Raptors, soaring high above the battlefield, had already begun their mission of observation. These advanced stealth fighters were not just there to strike, but to silently collect data. With the AN/ALR 94 electronic warfare system on board, the Raptors could intercept and analyze Iranian radar transmissions in real time. Every radar pulse sent out from Iran's Bavar 373 systems was being meticulously tracked by the US fighters. These Raptors were not only operating in the air, but also feeding live intelligence back to the USS Spruance. The intelligence they gathered was quickly processed, revealing not just the locations of Iranian missile defense systems, but also the relative effectiveness of each radar installation. The Iranian forces, meanwhile, believed they were in control, having destroyed a number of decoys. But the more they focused on eliminating false targets, the more they left their positions vulnerable. The F-22s relayed information back to the Spruance, feeding the American fleet with near-perfect targeting coordinates. These were not just coordinates for missiles. They were precise locations for everything on the Iranian coastline, including critical missile silos, radar systems, and command centers. The USS Spruance now had the entire battlefield mapped out with astonishing detail, and it was ready to exploit it in ways that the Iranian commanders could never have imagined. The next phase of the operation would come as a complete surprise to the Iranians. Rather than launching a fresh barrage of missiles, Captain Mitchell of the Spruance decided to take a more tactical approach, one that would make use of the very technology that had been gathering intelligence in the previous hours. With the Iranian defenses still in disarray, the captain opted to deploy a series of advanced, high-tech drones, the Shahed swarm. These drones, developed as part of a secret US military project, were capable of overwhelming even the most sophisticated air defense systems with their sheer numbers. The swarm consisted of 50 autonomous drones, each equipped with miniature warheads designed to cripple enemy infrastructure. They had been programmed to behave as a coordinated unit, with the ability to make real-time decisions based on the shifting dynamics of the battlefield. While the drones launched toward the Iranian coast, Captain Mitchell knew that the most effective strategy would be to wait. The Iranian military had already shown signs of being overconfident, and Mitchell planned to exploit that by holding fire. Instead of immediately launching a barrage of missiles to deal with the threat, he chose to let the drones close in on their targets, knowing that the Iranian defenses would be distracted by the sheer number of incoming threats. This was a calculated risk, one that could have easily backfired if the drones had been shot down before reaching their targets. But Mitchell had confidence in his decision. He understood that sometimes the greatest advantage lies in holding back when the enemy expects you to strike. As the swarm of drones closed in on Iranian targets, the Iranian military's confidence began to crack. What had seemed like a simple defensive operation was now spiraling out of control. Iranian radar systems, overwhelmed by the sheer number of incoming threats, began to fail. The Bavar 373, which had once been the cornerstone of their defense, was now unable to distinguish between real threats and decoys. The Iranian military began to panic, launching multiple interceptor missiles to try to take down the drones, but it was already too late. As the drones reached their targets, they released a devastating payload, crippling radar systems, destroying missile silos, and disabling communication networks. Each explosion sent a shockwave through the Iranian command centers, leaving the entire coastal defense network in disarray. The situation for Iran quickly became dire. But Captain Mitchell wasn't done yet. As the drones wreaked havoc along the coastline, the USS Spruance prepared its next move. It was time to deploy Project Meteor, an experimental microwave weapon that had been in development for years but had never been tested in a combat scenario. This powerful system, capable of emitting concentrated bursts of electromagnetic energy, was designed to disable electronic systems without causing physical destruction. In theory, it would render all radar and communication systems useless, crippling the Iranian military's ability to respond. Mitchell, fully aware of the weapon's potential, issued the order. The microwave pulse was released, and for the next several seconds, the Iranian radar systems and communication networks were bathed in a high-frequency electromagnetic storm. As the pulse spread across the Iranian coast, every radar station, missile launcher, and control tower fell silent. The systems that had been so effective in tracking the incoming American missiles were now completely disabled, unable to detect anything within the vicinity. The electronic battlefield had shifted dramatically in favor of the Americans. Iran's attempts to retaliate grew more desperate. Their radar systems, once the pride of their defense network, were now useless, and their air defenses were unable to differentiate between real threats and decoys. The Iranian forces continued to launch missiles, but with no guidance, they were little more than blind shots in the dark. It became increasingly clear that the United States was playing a game that Iran had never been prepared for. The Americans had taken control of the electromagnetic spectrum, neutralizing Iran's ability to respond effectively. At this point, Captain Mitchell knew it was time to unleash the final phase of the operation. The USS Spruance prepared to launch a series of precision-guided munitions, including the APKWS laser-guided rockets. These rockets, known for their precision and low cost, were perfect for this type of engagement. As the rockets soared toward their targets, the Iranian forces could do little to stop them. Each rocket hit its mark with deadly accuracy, destroying the remaining Iranian drone launchers and anti-aircraft systems. One by one, Iranian defense systems were wiped out, and the Spruance had achieved its goal. Iran's coastal defenses were crippled, and the U.S. had full control over the battlefield. The final blow came when the F-35Cs, equipped with ASQ-239 electronic warfare systems, intercepted Iranian communications and missile launchers from over 60 miles away.